I'm 74 years old and I only recently admitted something to myself that I spent a lifetime avoiding. I lived most of my life according to what other people expected of me, and I didn't understand the cost of that until there wasn't much life left to rearrange. I'm saying this now because the days feel shorter in a way they never used to. Not because they pass faster, but because I can see the end of them more clearly. I wake up in the morning and there's a quiet in the house that isn't peaceful. It's just empty. And in that quiet, the truth doesn't have anywhere to hide anymore. I'm not telling this story to justify myself. I'm not looking for forgiveness or applause or understanding. I'm telling it because I know how easy it is to drift into a life that looks right from the outside and feels wrong only when it's too late to change much of it. When you're old, people assume you've made peace with your choices. The truth is, you just get better at sitting with them. Most of my life I was considered dependable, sensible, the one who did what needed to be done. I was praised for that, encouraged, sometimes admired. No one ever pulled me aside and said, "Are you sure this is what you want?" They said things like, "That makes sense, and you're doing the right thing, and you'll thank yourself later." So I believed them. In my 20s, I didn't feel trapped. I felt responsible. I had a job that paid steadily even if it didn't excite me. My parents liked that. They'd lived through hard years, and stability mattered to them more than passion ever did. I didn't want to worry them. I didn't want to seem ungrateful for the opportunities I had. There were other things I wanted back then. Nothing dramatic, just quieter wishes. I liked writing, though I never told anyone that seriously. I liked long walks by myself, afternoons that didn't belong to anyone else. I liked the idea of living somewhere unfamiliar just to see who I might become there. But those were treated like hobbies, not directions. Things you do on weekends if you're lucky, not things you build a life around. I married young. Not because I was deeply certain, but because it was the next step. People expected it. She was kind and steady, and everyone said we made sense together. We did, in practical ways. We wanted the same sort of house, the same sort of routine, the same picture of adulthood that had been handed to us. Love, I thought, was supposed to grow later. First, you did things properly. Love would catch up. We worked, we saved, we planned. We talked about the future in terms of what we should do, not what we longed for. That felt immature, indulgent. Longing was something you outgrew. Years passed that way, quietly, respectably. I was busy most of the time. Busy became my shield. It protected me from questions I didn't know how to answer. When I was tired, I didn't have to think too much. When I was needed, I felt useful. That counted for something. We had children. I loved them, truly. But even then, I approached fatherhood like a responsibility to be managed well. I provided. I showed up. I did what fathers were supposed to do. I told myself that was enough. Sometimes my kids would ask questions that stopped me for a moment. "Why don't you like your job?" one of them asked once, casually, the way children do. I laughed it off. I said something about work being work, about not everyone getting to love what they do. I see now how carefully I kept things framed that way. If I said it often enough, maybe it would stay true. There were moments when the life I was living rubbed up against the life I might have lived. Seeing someone my age take a risk, hearing about a friend who moved away or changed paths or admitted they were unhappy and did something about it. I'd feel a tightness in my chest, brief but sharp. Then I'd remind myself of my responsibilities, of the people counting on me, of how selfish it would be to disrupt everything over a feeling. I told myself there would be time later, time to explore, time to choose differently, time to be more honest. Later became a comfortable word, a harmless word. It let me postpone myself indefinitely. The cost didn't arrive all at once. It seeped in, small disappointments I couldn't name, a sense of distance in conversations with my wife, where we talked logistics but not feelings, with my children, where I was present but not fully known. I missed things without realizing I was missing them. School plays where I arrived late because of work. Long talks that never happened because I was tired. Invitations I declined because staying home felt easier. None of those moments felt tragic at the time. That's the danger. They felt reasonable. Years went by and the life I was living became heavier to question. I had built it carefully. I had committed to it publicly. Changing it would have required admitting that I might have been wrong. And I wasn't ready to do that. The turning point didn't come with drama. It came with finality. My wife got sick, not suddenly but steadily. Appointments, treatments, quiet fear. We sat together in waiting rooms more than we ever sat together talking about our lives. There was love there, but also a sadness neither of us knew how to address. One evening, not long before she died, she asked me if I'd been happy, not if I was happy, if I had been. I didn't know how to answer her. I said something vague, something safe. She nodded, but I could tell she'd heard what I didn't say. After she was gone, the house felt like a museum of choices, everything arranged just so, everything speaking to a life lived carefully, and maybe too quietly. That's when the clarity arrived, not like a revelation, more like a weight settling fully onto my chest. I saw how much of my life had been shaped by expectations I never questioned, how often I chose approval over honesty, how many times I waited for permission that was never coming. I also saw what couldn't be fixed. My wife was gone. Whatever conversations we might have had, whatever truths we might have shared, they were gone with her. My children were grown with lives of their own. They knew me as the father I had been, not the man I might have been if I'd lived more openly. Time didn't pause to let me catch up to myself. That's the part people don't like to hear. You don't always get a second chance. Some doors close without ceremony. Some lives can't be reworked, only understood. I still wake up most mornings and feel that familiar urge to be useful, to be needed. Old habits don't disappear just because you recognize them. But now, there's also an ache that comes from knowing how much I deferred my own voice. I don't hate my life. That's important to say. There were good years, real joy, moments of laughter, pride, connection. This isn't a story of total loss. It's a story of partial absence, of living slightly to the side of yourself for so long that it feels normal. If you're listening to this and you're younger than me, I won't tell you what to do. I don't believe in instructions at this age, but I will tell you what I wish I'd understood. Other people's expectations are powerful, especially when they come wrapped in concern and praise. They don't feel like pressure. They feel like guidance, but they don't know your inner life. They can't. You can do everything right and still feel unfinished. You can be responsible and still feel unseen. Those feelings don't go away just because you ignore them. They wait. I thought there would always be time to be honest later. I thought the important thing was to keep things running smoothly. I didn't realize that smoothness can be a kind of silence, and silence can become a habit. Now, at 74, I have more quiet than I ever wanted. I use some of it to sit with memories, some of it to grieve what didn't happen, some of it just to breathe and accept that this is where I am. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us really do. But I know I won't get to live another version of my life. This is the one I made. This is the one I. If this meant something to you, maybe sit with it for a while, not to fix anything immediately, just to listen honestly to yourself. I'm learning late in the day that living for others isn't the same as living with them. And it isn't the same as living as yourself. That understanding didn't save me time, but it did finally give me the truth.